Indeed it is.
We are excited to invite you to 2022 Rotary International Convention, Houston, Texas.
Where there are no limits to what can be discovered.
Our horizons are changing, but we remain resilient.
Because it's in our nature to break down barriers.
To explore the vast world of ideas, culture, and experiences. The very things that give us new meaning to life.
So what better time than now to take action and push the boundaries of what's possible. To join forces and do something that revitalizes the spirit.
Form connections that broaden our worldview. Share our passion for service with other leaders.
And become inspired to do great things along the way.
Let's take on new horizons and see what's possible. Because our potential has no limits.
Discover new horizons at the 2022 Rotary International Convention in Houston, Texas.
Come, let's discover new horizons at the 2022 Rotary International Convention, Houston, Texas.
And welcome to the Rotary Club meeting for August 11th, 2021. And I'm the president, Raymond Foster, and I welcome you here, and we'll go around the wheel in just a moment. But first, to start with, we had a great weekend here at Rotary. We worked on our service project at Crossroads International, which is a transitional home for formerly incarcerated women. They are based in Claremont, but they've opened a new place in Pomona. And on Saturday, we had 27 volunteers show up for the rehab project. And on Sunday, 15 or 16 also showed up. We completed all of the work. And at the same time, we received notification that we got our grant from Home Depot for $1,002.39. And that's going to pay for the construction materials that we're going to need, not this weekend, but next weekend, when we're going to be out there painting, sanding, hammering, and toting stuff around in a wheelbarrow to put down new pavers and make the place look fabulous. It was very nice to be there. One of the best things was to see some of the women who live in the location work with us, how excited they were and how appreciative they were of all the labor that we put into the place. And Sunday, as we were leaving, one of them, we had finished power washing the patio and it looked fabulous. And one of them said, you know, tonight we're going to be able to come out here when it cools off and we're going to be able to sit down and talk amongst us and enjoy all of this work that you've done. So my hat's off to all the Rotarians. We had San Dimas Rotary, San Dimas Masonic Lodge, Claremont High School Interact, Claremont Rotary Club, and 2 local churches all supplied volunteers, and that's great. The better part of this is, though, because we didn't spend the money that we budgeted for the project, we got that grant, we're going to be able to convince the Masonic Lodge to roll over their 250 into Derek's International Service Project, and our board's going to be able to roll over the 500 we'd committed into our International Service Project, making even that project have much more potential. So it's fabulous to be here at the Rotary Club, and I know that you've just popped in, Mike, and I didn't ask you beforehand, but can I get you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Super. So let's go around the Rotary wheel. And Mike, since you're unmuted, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, buddy?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Wallace. I am the president of Better Home Financial. We are a mortgage brokerage downtown in San Dimas. I've been a Rotarian for over 6 years, past president, past treasurer, and pretty active in the community. Happy to be here serving San Dimas.
Thank you, Mike. And Carissa, no longer our newest Rotarian, by the way. That's fantastic. How are you?
Doing well. Hi, everyone. Carissa Ferrari. I was the newest member. Now I hear I'm not anymore, which is awesome. Welcome. I am a San Dimas resident, and I work at Bolton and Company, which is an insurance brokerage firm out of Pasadena.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to see you here today. And Derek, while you're on the road, introduce yourself, brother.
Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Bethnew. I'm a Rotary member and super excited to be here. And hello, everyone.
Excellent. And Marianne? You must unmute yourself, Marianne. I know you can do it. Well, let's
Thank
go
you.
over.
Thank
there
you. I'm Marianne Kistler. I am the past president of Rotary. I am a over 25-year member of Rotary. I am the current foundation chair, and I'm glad to be here today.
Marianne, did you enjoy yourself this weekend?
I did. That was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun at the same time.
It was hot, but it was fun.
Yes.
And let's see, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Lauren Ferrari. I am a resident of San Dimas, have been for about 11 years, and I work in law enforcement.
Very good. Thank you for being here again today, Lauren. And Steve Scott.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Scott. I am the secretary of the club, past president, and I am a State Farm agent in San Dimas.
Excellent. Thank you again, Steve, for being here. And we actually had more good news. We have one person who has yet to vote, but I'm certain they're going to vote. We have brand new bylaws, which will enable us as a board to go forward in much bigger and better ways. And I thank all of you for taking the time to review the new bylaws and vote on them. So without going much further into Rotary business, let's talk about our speaker. Mr. Sandel has a Master of Arts and Bachelor of Science from Western Michigan University. Since graduation, he's amassed a number of highly specialized certificates in human performance improvement, leadership development, coaching, business acumen, and applied positive psychology, including additional classwork at Yale and USC Berkeley. Don's expertise is in the field of leadership as well as the impact of shifting to a positive mindset. He is a sought-after speaker on the topic, often speaking at national and global conferences, and has been published nationally. He is currently the founder of GoPositiv, but has spent a quarter of a century leading talent development for such companies as Astell's Pharma, Allscripts, and United Airlines. He has recently consulted for such organizations as Wintrust Bank, McCormick Spice, Ada S. McKinley Community Services, and AstraZeneca, and has thrilled thousands with his energetic keynotes on shifting to a positive mindset. Don has 2 books in the works, Play the Game by Panoma Press and Positive Mind Shift by New Degree Press. Don is active in ADT and CCATD and the Executive Learning Exchange, and is on the board of the Leotoud Institute. Don is also a volunteer with his church, community, and an avid reader, often found reading books about neuroscience, travel, and history. And welcome to the Rotary Club of San Dimas, Don.
Well, thank you. Boy, you read every single word on that bio, didn't you?
I tried very hard.
So let's double check our technology here, a little tactical moment. You can see my screen?
Looks good.
All right, wonderful. So thank you so much. And I appreciate that wonderful introduction. Hello, Rotarians. It's so good to see you. I've got a lot to cover. So I'm going to talk really fast. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have a couple moments for your questions. I really hope you have some questions on this. Notice at the top of the screen is my email address. So any questions you have regarding the science, the studies, what I talk about, feel free to send me a note. And I do this all the time. Happy to send you whatever information that you need. So with that, let me jump in, and I'm gonna speak really fast. So bear with me. So here's 3 things that I know for sure since I've been doing this research. The first one is that you'll appreciate this. The obstacles in our way are most often self-imposed, right? We have our self-limiting beliefs and we get in our own way. You know, in the 40s and 50s, medical science said that man should not break the 4-minute mile. If he did, he could die. Not being melodramatic, that's what they said. But in 1954, a guy by the name of Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. And of course, it was an iconic moment in sports history. It made the newspapers, the radio, even television at the time, as an iconic moment in sports history. But that's not what's most important about that. What's most compelling and important about that is that in the next 13 months, 6 other people broke the 4-minute mile. They got out of their own way and allowed themselves to perform at their highest. That's mindset right there. Here's the second thing that I know for sure since I've been doing this research is that the Dalai Lama posits that our reason for living is to be happy. I'm not going to refute the Dalai Lama. But what the Dalai Lama didn't tell us is that having the right mindset, a positive mindset, is a competitive advantage. In fact, every relevant business metric goes up when we have teams and individuals in our teams that have that positive mindset. And here's the third thing, and this is really the thesis for everything that I do with GoPositiv. We are better. You are better in every domain of your life when you shift to a positive mindset. That's what the research, that's what 25 years worth of research tells us. We're more focused, we're more disciplined, we're more innovative, we're more creative, we're actually smarter. Our IQ goes up when we have this positive mindset. They've done duplicated studies with students, and they prime them to be either positive, neutral, or negative before taking math achievement tests. The ones that were primed to be positive always did better. We have better recall, we have better memory. We can leverage the power of our own brains better, and we actually open up the learning centers to our brain. So that is really the focus of what we do. We make that irrefutable link between the right mindset and higher performance, better output, and better outcomes. So with that, I want you to pause for a moment, and I want you to think about really the last 18 months. And I know they've been a challenge for everybody, but I just want you to pause for a moment. I think it was Derek who was driving. So Derek, still drive. But despite the fact that we've had a rough 18 months, I know for sure you've all still had positive moments. So do me a favor, pull out one of your most favorite positive moments that you've had, say this year. Pull it out, recall it, replay it, savor it for a moment. Your favorite positive moment. And a little background music. So here's my very obvious question for you when you got a chance to do that. Here's my real obvious question. When you got a chance to recall that positive moment, and go ahead and unmute yourselves. How did that make you feel? When you got a chance to savor that positive moment, how did that make you feel? Anybody? Input? Anyone?
Good.
Yeah, right?
Great.
Yeah. You felt good, you felt great, you felt happy, right? So let's dive into what happens when we have that positive mindset, because that was a primary activity. I did that on purpose. Let's explain that a little bit. So what happens in our brains when we shift to a positive mindset? So first of all, we don't feel positive emotions just because we have them. We feel them because we get a release of certain neurochemicals. And also keep in mind that our brain does not distinguish between experiencing that moment and experiencing the memory of that moment. The brain does not distinguish between the two. So when you got a chance to savor that moment, the brain said, oh, I guess we're experiencing that again, and it released those happy chemicals. That's why you felt so good. And of course, most of you are familiar with these chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. And I tell you, it's not just a social virtue to shift to a positive mindset. Our physiology literally changes in the service of positive outputs, right? Our brains change, our guts change, our neurons change, our chemicals change, even our tissues change when we shift to a positive mindset. And that's what enables us to be even more powerful and have even more powerful outcomes. All of these things, the chemicals, our physical changes, our attitude, our mood, helps us produce these positive outcomes. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to dive into this just a little bit more detail. So keep in mind that the primary function of our brain is our survival, unfortunately, not our life satisfaction. So when we succumb to all that negativity that's out there, chances are good our limbic system is going to be in charge, right? That's the emotional part of our brain. That's the fight, flight, or freeze part of our brain. So when that part of our brain really takes over, we tend to be led by higher emotions and we have less impulse control. When we have that negative mindset, this is so interesting. We actually have lower physical, cognitive, and social emotional capabilities. The brain does not even allow us to be good partners, good colleagues, and even have empathy for other people because it's focused on our survival. And when we have that negative mindset, we have a higher death rate. We don't deal with things like stress, anxiety, fear, depression as well. We have poorer health and we have a weakened immune system. But that's the negative. Let me shine the positive light on this. That when we have a positive mindset, then the prefrontal cortex is in charge. That's the newest part of our brain. That's the rational part of our brain, the executive function part of our brain. So when that's in charge, we have more impulse control. We literally now strengthen our physical, cognitive, and social emotional capabilities. And when we have that positive mindset, the data tells us that we lead a longer life. We deal with stress, anxiety, fear, depression. We deal with those things all better. We have better health and a stronger immune system. So it's incredibly powerful to understand that it's not just a nice thing to do. It's not just a social virtue, that our physiology literally changes. And in fact, there's this great study done by Dr. Sonia Lubomirsky out of University of California, I think Irvine. And she did this study with about, I think she reviewed over 225 different studies involving almost 300,000 participants. And what she determined is that happiness doesn't follow success. In fact, it's the other way around. Happiness precedes success. That when we focus on those positive emotions, we're actually better in everything that we do. And she's got a list here of some of the things that improve. We make more money, we're better leaders, we have better marriages, we have more friends, we're more philanthropic. We cope better with, those things like stress and trauma. We have a stronger immune system, we live longer, and we perform better at work. So you would think then that if all those things occur and we are really better people and we bring our best selves to whatever project we're working on, that it's going to have business impact. So just really quick, I've done the research for you. we see an increase in productivity. We're more efficient. We're 10 times less likely to take sick leave. Now, there's multiple reasons for that. One, we're engaged and we actually want to go to work. And two, we're healthier. We're 6 times more engaged, or 6 times more energized. We're more engaged. And I love this one, that our high potentials in our organizations, want to stick around longer when they're surrounded by other positive people. So there's this incredible business impact as well. So, okay, that's my setup, you guys. Hopefully that was only about 10 minutes. So what I want to do now is probably answer the question that's in all of your heads. Okay, great, Don, I get it. My physiology changes. There's neuroscience behind this. We're different and we're better. But how do we do that? How do we sustain that positive mindset? So just so you know, there's dozens of these research techniques. I'm just going to share 5 with you. And maybe we'll do a couple activities as we go along. So the first one is this idea of really socially reconnecting, because it's a very human need that we have as humans to socially reconnect. And when we do, we get a release of some of those happy chemicals. Work is indeed a social environment, but it's been so disrupted lately. So we need to be more intentional about connecting with other people. In fact, this is a fascinating study. Harvard did a longitudinal study that began, believe it or not, in the 1930s. And what they did is they tracked the lives of 1,000 people. And they tracked them for the totality of the project, for the totality of their lives. Now, there was a number of fascinating things that came out of the study. But what the most compelling thing I discovered in this study is that they said, there's one key thing that came out of this study, and it was this, that good relationships make us happier and healthier, period. So I really want to encourage you with the first step is to really go out of your way, intentionally reconnect with other people. So your first action is this, and I just want to encourage this with my Rotarian friends here, to reconnect with somebody who's important to you in the next 24 hours. So step number 2 is this idea of refocusing on our diet, our exercise, and our sleep. Now, there's a multitude of reasons to do this, but I really want to focus on that when we do that, it helps us launch more positive emotions. So the conditions, so let's talk about diet first. The conditions of poor diet damage the brain. In fact, what's good for our body is good for our brain. In fact, a healthy brain increases those happy chemicals. So it's really important to kind of focus on our diet and be as healthy as we can be. So quick activity, really quick, just think of your typical dinner plate. Just have that picture in your head. And I want to change that image. I want to encourage you to change your diet a little bit, because if I did this about 15, 16 years ago, what's the biggest thing on the plate? Big steak, big burger, big pork chop. But the data tells us that too much animal protein is probably not a good thing. So I just want to encourage you to change that plate. Less animal protein, more salads, more beans, more nuts, more berries, more salads, more vegetables. You guys know the routine. And the main reason for chronic disease is inflammation. So our diet can help in mitigating inflammation. And so I'm going to encourage you specifically to eat more ginger and eat more turmeric to lower that inflammation. The next thing I want to talk about is exercise. Now, since I can't see all of you, I'm just going to trust that all of you guys exercise to one degree or another. But what I'm telling you is, I don't care why you exercise, just keep doing it. Because when we exercise, it's the #1 way to grow new neurons in our brain. It's the #1 way to increase blood flow, which is really key to being anti-inflammatory. It's great for our brain. Our brain loves blood flow. So #1 way to grow new neurons, #1 way to have blood flow, and #1 way, and you guys will appreciate this, I think, is to mitigate the stress hormone cortisol, which is really damaging to our organs. Exercise is the #1 way to rid our bodies of cortisol. And finally, when we exercise, you guys have probably felt this, it releases most of those happy chemicals. So you want to mitigate sadness and depression and anxiety and fear and all those things, go out and exercise. Okay, so let's talk about sleep. So we all know that when we sleep, we recoup, we regenerate, we consolidate our learning. But let me throw this at you, that when you sleep and you get a good night's sleep, the cerebral cortex part of your brain, the macaroni part of your brain, the gray matter part of your brain, when you get a good night's sleep, it actually opens up ever so slightly. Spinal fluid goes into the brain, spinal fluid comes into the brain, and it actually cleanses your brain when you get a good night's sleep. It removes the dead neurons, it removes any toxins. That process takes about 7 or 8 hours. So the research in the last 10 to 12 years is really profound on getting more sleep. Okay. So step number 2, I'm not worried about being perfect, just be better. Okay, step 3, let's talk about gratitude. I know this one sounds a little bit soft to you, but even though it sounds soft, it's really backed by hard science. When we do the gratitude activity, we'll do it really brief. It grows new neurons, it releases those happy chemicals. And it's very fascinating the way the brain works, that if we do this activity for about 45 days straight, the nervous system takes over. And all of a sudden it takes over, our brain takes over, it loves these new patterns and it takes over and it starts to pick up on this habit of looking for positive things in our environment. It's really fascinating the way that works. So here's the gratitude activity. I want to make sure I keep this on time, so I'm just going to describe it to you. The gratitude activity is simply this: take a moment, pause, and think of 3 things that you are grateful for. One of them should be a person. Now, if you do that, don't do it every day. Do it about every other day, every 3rd day. And you do that for about 45 days, your nervous system takes over and you start, your brain on its own starts looking for positive things. Okay, so let's turn to the next. So with gratitude, your next action, do this about 3 or 4 times a week. Let's talk about this concept of mindfulness. Notice that I am not burning any incense. I don't have flowing robes, but mindfulness is incredibly powerful. It helps us control our own thoughts in our own brain. It improves our cognitive strength. It even helps us grow new neurons, and it improves our concentration. Who wouldn't want that? So here's a quick activity. Let's do this together. We're just going to do this really quick. Do this multiple times a day. Just pause for a moment. Again, Derek, keep your hands on the wheel, 10 and 2. But just do this for a moment. If you don't mind, maybe even close your eyes, but you're going to do a deep breath in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Go ahead, take a deep breath, deep as you can. And exhale. Don't you already just in that moment feel better? But if you do that enough times, you start to really reorganize the circuitry in your brain to be a more calmer person. It gives you more cognitive strength. The Dalai Lama says, you know, on an average day, I meditate about an hour a day, but on my really busy days, I meditate 2 hours a day. So take some time, meditate a little bit, and give control and power back to your brain. And finally, we're going to kind of wrap up with this concept of reframing. We all have a negativity bias, which means that our brains are full of way too much negativity. Our self-talk is negative. In fact, National Science Foundation and Cornell University did a study, and the study said that 80% of our thoughts are negative. We need to change that because it's an unmitigated waste of time. Quick story, and then we'll wrap up. So quick story is this: in 2011, 2 weeks before Christmas, I was part of an executive team that was let go of this company. They were having issues. Anybody who was making money, they said, go bye. So I could have seen that and wallowed in negativity, right? Just before Christmas, lost my job, but instead, I reframed that and I saw it as an opportunity. So I took that negative and I reframed it to a positive. I'm telling you, that next 6 months was one of the best 6 months I've ever had in my working life. I did consulting work, I published twice, and when I got a new job about 5 months later, it was so much better than that last job. So think about reframing those negative thoughts to the positive. All right, so we'll wrap up with this slide. We talked about that when we have a positive mindset, we're better in every domain of our lives. We actually go through physiological changes, and it really affects our businesses because business metrics improve. We're going to take some actions. Think about reconnecting with somebody that you haven't in a while in the next 24 hours. We're going to get better with our diet, our exercise, and our sleep. We're going to do more gratitude. We're going to feel more gratitude. It's going to put us in such a positive state. We're going to meditate more, reorganize the networks in our brain, and we're going to reframe all those negative thoughts to the positive. Whew. How did I do? Did I do that in 20 minutes?
I think you beat your own record.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I would assume we have about 4 or 5 minutes of questions. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What questions do you have? How can I help you?
Well, I'll throw the floor open. Who's got a question? Otherwise, you know, I always have questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, Don, thank you. That's fantastic. Let's say that I wanted to kind of focus what you discussed today into a specific event. I'm a golfer. I'm a pretty decent golfer. I'm also a massive choker in high leverage spots. If I wanted to try to change my mind frame in that moment, in that high pressure moment, what would you say are the best 2 or 3 things that I could do to help myself?
That is so funny that you bring up golf. I absolutely love golf. And out of all the things that I can guarantee you this can help with, I'm not so sure it can help your golf game, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. I have on my golf cart, I always go with a push cart. I don't like driving. I go with a push cart. And I have on there one word, and I just did this on a little sticker, and it's just breathe. Because I get caught up in the moment and I forget to breathe. And what breathing does is it gives you back control of your brain. It takes out all the external pressures and it gives you back control of your own mind and your own brain. So I think the biggest thing that you can do is, 1, control your breathing. The other thing is control your self-talk. Remember this phrase. It's not the things that happen to us, but what we tell us about those things. Right? So manage your self-talk, manage your breathing.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Reach back to me and let me know how that helps your score.
Will do.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'm interested in the difference between internal and external cues. And you talked about self-talk, how damaging it can be. It can also be positive, but one of the things that always fascinates me, the brown bread studies, where he talked about the fact that it's the external cues about people telling us or what we see or the actions we take. How important is action and taking action to this positive mindset?
Yeah, look, we have decades, right, of habits, and repetition builds habits. So we have decades of not doing most of this. I'm making an assumption, but that's what the data tells us, right? So if we learned those habits, we can unlearn them and replace them with better habits. But it's never going to happen if, one, we're not intentional about it, and two, we don't change our self-talk, right? You're right, there's positive self-talk, absolutely. But the bulk of our self-talk is negative. So it has to be something where you're intentional about it. In fact, when I do my workshops, less the keynotes, but usually the workshops, I literally instruct people to bring their laptops. And I'll tell you why. I want them closed during most of the session, but I will have them open up their laptops and go into their calendars and actually put some of these new behaviors as recurring events into their calendar. What happens, and you know this, Lieutenant, you know this, that you can have the best intentions to change behavior, maybe after a workshop, right? For 24 hours, you are a new person, but then life hits you and you forget about it. I literally have people go into their calendars and put these as recurring events, as reminders to manage your self-talk, breathe, gratitude activity, all the other activities. I have them literally put it in their calendar.
I do like that. I do like, it sounds stupid it sounds stupid that you should schedule, you're going to be grateful. But I mean, that's really powerful to put that in your calendar. That's a very powerful thing. And have that alert come up and say, take a breath or to be grateful. That's a good idea.
I had people do the same thing with Google, with Alexa, with Siri, and just have these reminders throughout the day.
Are there other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to ask one more. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Don, how do you get around? Derek sees me in lodge. These people see me in the Rotary Club generally during the meetings. And I do believe positivity is extraordinarily important. How do you get around Pollyanna versus positivity? Some people come across as Pollyanna and not positive.
Yeah. They're probably fake it till you make it type of thing. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be real. And it's a new muscle for a lot of people. And it's going to take some time, which is why repetition is important, having a partner with you who's doing it as well, having a group with you who's doing it well. So it really needs to be authentic and just ingrained in what you do. And also understand you're not going to change in 24 hours. It's a process.
Awesome. So that's Don at GoPositiv.com. And anyone, Carissa, you just popped on. I knew you're dying to ask a question.
No, I don't have a question, but I was listening to a podcast recently, Don, and it kind of resonated with me how you mentioned mindset and gratitude and all that good stuff. The way they explained it was, like when you're in the market for a new car, and if you know you want a Jeep Wrangler, all of a sudden you start seeing Jeep Wranglers everywhere, right? So they just explained it that way and said it's the exact same thing with changing your mindset and trying to be positive. So
yeah, I love that. And you can change your brain to change, right? You can train it to change, but it just takes keep doing it and keep doing it.
Yeah. No, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
When you did the gratitude exercise, you know what I'm always grateful for, and this sounds, again, it might sound stupid, is electricity. I mean, I can only imagine 100 years ago, no air conditioning, no radio, no television, no communications. That wasn't that long ago and my grandparents lived in that my grandmother plowed with a mule. I mean, and here we are in this fabulous world with all of these things that are like magical. And we literally have the wisdom of Solomon right before us in a little box, and we play Candy Crush with it. But great presentation. So anybody questions? All right.
So reach out to me anytime. I'm going to let you guys have the rest of your meeting. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
So we are going to move into the Fine Master right away. And the Fine Master is not here. as you know, we are tracking fines. I know there's some out there. So who would like to fine themselves? I'm fine, you're fine. It's not fine. That, of course, is always more expensive. Nobody? Really? I'm gonna have to start finding people.
Actually, I'll find myself. I enjoyed this presentation. It was a very nice thing to hear right before my first day of students. So I'm going to find myself $10 for the wonderful motivation I received.
Very cool. I like it. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm going to find myself $5. I really enjoyed the presentation, but I liked, what he said about gratitude and how that can change your mindset, because that's really something that I get from Rotary. I get bogged down in the hustle and bustle and get caught up in my own world, my own business, and sometimes I'm so busy that it feels like a burden to come to the Rotary meeting. But every time that I'm here, it changes my mindset of, we get a program and usually it puts things in perspective that what's right in front of my face really in the grand scheme of things is a great problem to have. And it gives me gratitude. And so that kind of ties in with, that weekly reminder or that consistent reminder. Rotary is a big part of gratitude for me.
One of the things I talk about in the lectures I do is the magic of you've heard this, you get more out of it. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. For Rotary, for me, is I don't think you can put enough into it for what we get out of it in the gratitude model, because every time number one, like all the great people we're working with, all the positive things, we're working these terrible problems, and we're doing all these, you should have seen the look on the ladies' faces. They could not believe all the people who showed up that they didn't know who were just working for them. And Marianne, you experienced that, am I not correct?
That is very true.
And Steve, on your second day, how did you find that?
Oh, absolutely the same. That's one of those Rotary moments we talk about, and you're absolutely right. I mean, they were grateful, but their gratitude kind of made me feel even better. I think I took more out of it than they did, and they took a lot out of it. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
Very well said, Steve.
Absolutely, Steve. I agree. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's whenever you see a Rotarian, that's why the rooms are always so filled with all that positive energy that sometimes is a little grating, but nevertheless, it's there. Any other fines? Do we have any other fines? Hey, so I think I sent this out, but I want you to know that we are tracking attendance and fines. Rotary's not focused on attendance, but it's necessary that I think we track the fines, and also maybe gives us a look and say, gee whiz, somebody's not showing up. We need to talk to them. So
very true. Very good.
We're looking at,
Raymond, I'll find myself
okay,
as well. I'll find myself $10. I know specifically, to like you and Mike, who know me probably the best, this won't be a huge shock, but I'm not always the most optimistic, sunny fellow on the planet. So listening to Don today was another reminder of things you can do to kind of change that mindset. And it would be really cool to get some sleep. So if this helps me sleep, I'll pay far more than my $10 fine.
see it. And Steve, I think you're one of the most positive people I know, because I think you hide that positivity under a bushel because you're afraid it'll break. That's what I think. I've always found you, because you're the one guy I can always go to be reliable, has been Steve for years. Everybody's shaking their head yes here if you can't see it, Steve. So I think you've got it. You're just hiding it from us. So we're not going to take that, Mr. McGruff.
No, I think Steve's approach is to set his expectations at the worst possible scenario, and that way the needle always moves to the positive. And that is Steve's version of being positive.
And you know what? I couldn't believe it. Here's a guy. Now, wait a minute. Am I wrong in this? A guy who just got a hole-in-one is asking for help on his golf swing. Is that what I heard?
Not on my golf swing, on my golf attitude. Wildly different things there.
Okay. So
I would say, in the context of Steve's question, that hole-in-one was probably not on hole 18 when he was down by 2.
It was not.
More of a pressure, you know, and responding to pressure down the.
Correct. Correct.
Very cool. So we've got the fines out of the way. Anybody else want to speak up before we move on to Action 360? Okay. By the way, we skipped over the Fast Craft Talk. We are beginning to schedule those. And so we've got people calling who are interested in the Fast Craft Talk, and that is very cool. I hope to get that calendared in. And then if we can get that rolling, it to be a really tight part of the meeting going forward, probably in late August, early September. As you know, Crossroads, Mike and I will be going Thursday to Home Depot. We'll be purchasing all the supplies and taking them a week from tomorrow to the house itself and storing them there. That weekend, we're going to need cordless drills, hammers, saws, ladders. We're going to buy painting stuff, but if you have painting stuff, you could bring that too. When I'm going to put a kind of an email out, so I make sure I get the proper equipment for the work we're going to be doing that weekend. So that's coming up and is looking very good.
Rick, I'm sorry, I know you said cordless. Is there power there?
There is.
Okay,
there is,
so extension cords are possible if there are power tools that are not cordless.
That's correct. And I will bring my 100-footer again. And we had several in the backyard there, which enabled us to go around and do various stuff. So yes, we will. And anybody who worked there knows we absolutely needed every cord that we had. We broke 2 weed eaters in that place, and we broke 2 weed eaters in a lawnmower doing that place. So there was a lot of work to be done. Making spirits bright. So we have 2 aspects of this that are coming together rather nicely. That is the project to assist enlisted Marine Corps personnel at Christmas time at 29 Palms and Camp Pendleton. And that is through the Diamond Bar Women's Club. That is their major project. Last week, myself and a couple of guys from the lodge went out to 29 Palms, and we were given a tour of the base by the Armed Services portion of the YMCA, who runs all the programs there. And they have a variety of programs there. And they were actually, the place is 1,200 square miles. It was 114 degrees. They took us out on the ranges, and we watched Marines working in the sun on mortar drills. We watched them on the 500 yard line firing their weapons. And we just went through the entire base. It was a fascinating tour, a fascinating part of the programs they have out there. So we've committed to helping the Diamond Bar Women's Club, and that's budgeted. However, we've got these 2 things coming up. One is that they're going to do a spaghetti dinner as a fundraiser. And that spaghetti dinner, the lodge voted Monday night to provide the location, the food, and the cooks. The young Marines have agreed to be the servers, and we're putting together a program including a keynote speaker. Rotary's role will be this: the keynote speaker and various aspects of the program will allow us to develop a program that we can sell sponsorships into. And so we'll be drafting a letter about the sponsorships to go to every Rotary club in our zone and every lodge in the state of California to try to sell probably $20,000 worth of sponsorships in this thing. And the agreement is, the split is 4 ways to Making Spirits Bright, the Young Marines, the YMCA out at the base, and us. And so it's a potential to raise $5 to $6, maybe more $1,000. In addition to supporting them, we'll then have that money for other projects. So that's coming up, and it'll be November 10th, and that's the Marine Corps birthday. So it'll be the Marine Corps birthday at the lodge, spaghetti dinner. The tickets will only be $15, and there's only 100 of them, and the Diamond Bar Women's Club will be selling those. The second thing we're working on is the patriotic hockey game. We're working on it. That's all Derek and I can tell you, is we're working on it. And hopefully Eric will get back to us soon and we'll be able to get that going. Steve, any update from the state? Well, Steve's dropped off. The raffle tickets are ready to go. We just need the okay from the state and a vote from the board. We should have those the next couple of weeks. And this raffle will be taking off, which will be our major fundraiser for the year. Anybody have any questions on Making Spirits Bright or the Crossroads project? And I told you that originally Derek's budget for his international service is $1,200. I think that's inching up towards $2,000. And so Derek has a real opportunity here to find a project for us to really sink our meaty teeth into it, so that we get some good stuff. No, now we're going on to calendar.
Sorry, Raymond, I just had a quick question, and we can talk about this offline if you'd prefer. I know you had discussed or mentioned that there is a thrift store out at the base, 29 Palms, and you were going to try to look into whether baby clothes or even adult clothes would be beneficial to send out there rather than local Goodwill. Did you get any feel on that while you were out there?
I did, and I did go through the thrift store. The biggest thing that they need right now, they have both a thrift store and a food bank, which services the enlisted personnel. The 29 Palms base is 1,200 square miles. It is larger than the state of Rhode Island. It has between 12 and 13,000 Marines and 1,000 sailors. The bulk of those are enlisted personnel, E4 and below, or either going through a school or through some kind of combat training. They have their families there that live off and on base, and they're supported by the thrift store. And believe it or not, a significant portion of the thrift store is the uniform store, where a member can come in and get up to 4 pieces, I think, a month. The dress uniforms, if you don't know this or not, in the military, you pay for your own uniforms. And so the dress uniforms can be very expensive. And then they have the food bank, which stocks all kinds of things, but right now is looking for formula and diapers. There are 45 pregnant spouses. And the word, you don't have to use spouse. You can't use wife, because there are male spouses and there are female spouses, but there are 45 pregnant spouses out there and lots of small children. So yes. And what we're doing is, the problem, Mike, is transportation. The Marine Corps is prohibited from providing transportation from here of everything we gather to 29 Palms. So we're looking at 2 options. We're kind of putting this together, but one of them is to talk to the National Guard about a humanitarian mission and borrowing one of their big trucks and then going out there with a deuce and a half loaded with stuff. So as we get further into how we're going to support that part of 29 Palms, I'll have more for you. Good question.
All right. That and I, depending on how big of project and how much we can gather, that may be something that ServPro may be able to help with as well.
That was one of my ideas too, is to contact ServPro and look at them for the transportation. And I talked to them, but there's like 5 organizations involved in this, and we're kind of gently leading the way right now. We're kind of gently pushing. We're not leading at this point. I'm kind of pushing, but it has to be gentle so this coalition doesn't fall apart before it has a chance to mature. Good question. Okay, so any other questions about those projects? Okay, excellent. All right. And the calendar, here it is. Next week is Liberation is Imperative by Kevin Knight. That's another speaker. Then after that, we'll be going back to really projects, which will be soil erosion in Haiti, and then Hope for Homes, which will be about the homeless problem in the Pomona, San Dimas, Claremont area with Reggie from the BOA, and then TCP Global Micro Grants. The most important thing coming up is the service project. And by the way, our next club assembly, please mark this on your calendar, September 22nd, noon. It's a Wednesday. It will be in person. It's been confirmed. We'll be doing it at the Senior Center. We'll be catering it. And our keynote speaker will be Emmett Badar, the mayor. And I'm hoping that we can provide lunch to 6 city employees. So I've already told the city to plan for 25 people. But that's our club assembly. We have plenty of notice. It'll be lunch, and it'll be good to see everybody and to be able to break bread. Any questions about the calendar? Awesome. Can anyone recite the 4-way test without me putting it up or without a cheat sheet of some kind? I see Craig is down there grinning. You're grinning, Craig, or is that just your dentist smile?
That's just my normal smile.
That's just your normal smile.
I cannot recite it though.
All right. Well, the 4-way test, I'll put it up on the screen here. Of all the things we think, say, or do, and this is so important because it goes right into what Don was talking about, of all the things we think, our internal dialogue, the things we say, and the actions we take. That's that cycle. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And that's your 4-way test for this Rotary meeting. Let me stop sharing real quick. Does anybody have anything before we go? Well, thank you so much. That's the end of the Rotary meeting. See everybody next week.